We're back with Shawn Naylor. So Shawn, you leave us at your breaking hearts. You said you were a man that ruined lives, had to make the choice to deal drugs because you couldn't get into school, had to make a living. And then one night you decide that you have to leave town for a while and you find out that everything that you had is gone.
Yeah. It was the night that I left, well, the day that led to the night that I left, I ended up bringing drugs to a gentleman, and he had his daughter in his arms. And that was the moment that I realized I was the guy who was ruining lives. And it wasn't just the life of the person that I was interacting with, but it was this young daughter. And it was that moment of clairvoyance where you're just like, what am I doing? And so I was like, okay, I need to go out west, go take a little bit of a break. And when I got out there, I got this phone call from somebody, one of the people that I guess associates, whatever you want to call them. And he said, he's like, you've been robbed, you know. And I was like, robbed? And I went from nothing. Like I could afford anything that I wanted, whatever I wanted, and I went to nothing. And normally I have a shoestring on to remind myself of what had happened, because when I had nothing, then I had to start stealing food to live, because I was in the middle of nowhere. And I would put the shoelace on in my jacket, tighten up the jacket, and I would put food into my jacket so I could keep, you know, food and walk out the store. But then it got real bad, because at some point my money that I had on me ran out. And I couldn't afford a chocolate bar, so I couldn't even make it look like I was buying something when I went into the grocery store. And I looked in the newspaper and there was this ad and it said $20 an hour. And at that time, that was a lot of money. I mean, it was 20.
Still is a lot of money.
You know, $20 an hour. And I was like, okay, let's do that. And it said no experience needed. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm sure I can learn on the job. And I got there. And, you know, if you're in this industry of, you know, drug dealing, whatever, that kind of criminality, you know when you see a sleazeball, and I saw one. But I needed to eat, and you just got stomach pain. It's a whole nother ball game. And so I saw kind of what he was doing, and so that required me to sell myself. And man, I've never seen, like, human depravity just goes downhill when you get to that place where you are selling literally the physical gift that God has given you as your body, your temple, and you give it away for dollars, and you're now putting a value on it. And you know, when Jesus died on the cross, he said, it's finished, so your debt has been paid, so your value is non-negotiable. So you don't change, no matter how the world changes. And I was lost. And so I was working a couple days for about a month or whatever. And then I was like...
How did you feel about yourself?
I'm a confident guy.
We talk about identity.
Yeah. But I was lost. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what my value was. And then another moment hit, just as the moment that I realized I needed to get out of there. It's like, and I was so angry at myself because I said the cliche line, if I worked for my dad, if I was a slave to my dad, if I just lived there, it would be better than this. If I would submit myself and be humble and just go home. And so I tried to make a phone call to my dad. And I was going around, couldn't get the signal on the phone. And called him, and my dad didn't have caller ID, and hey, man, it was intense. And so I call, and he picks up the phone, and gets me every time. I try to say something to him, but I can't say anything to him. And he knows me from my breath. And he just says, I love you. At that moment, everything changed. My value was restored. Who I was restored. And then you pair that up with the parallel of Jesus Christ and the prodigal son, and the fathers out there. They're tears of joy, okay? And when your value comes back, and it's an overflowing deal. And yeah, so Dad tells me he loves me, and my whole world changes. Fast forward a little bit, my dad says, come on home, I come home, and then the whole thing changes. God just starts doing these miraculous things, and somehow I get into university, and I'm like, how did this even happen?
Tell me about the conversation you had with Jesus after the conversation you had with your earthly father. How did you return to him?
I said, Lord, like, you know what I need. You know the parameters that I need. You know the guidelines and the arena in which I need to thrive in. So provide it. And he did in unbelievable fashion. I think we put God in a box and drop him in this thing. This is how it's got to be. And he says, man, I'm such a big God, and I can do such incredible things with your life if you just give it to me. Yeah. And so we did. And man, I'm still amazed as to where he's taking this road. What's next? I don't know. But I love what I do. I could just talk to young people. I get to share and develop young people on how to share their story and lead people to Jesus.
You're now married.
Yeah.
You have 2 boys, 1 on the way.
Yeah.
Life is good. But I want, there are going to be people watching that have a similar past,
Yep.
similar story that you have, and they'll think, okay, so I just have to accept Jesus and everything's going to be great right after that. Is everything great right after that?
There's a process. It is not easy because you have to get rid of the old habits and we become a new creation. And so all these other things and tendencies have to kind of get off of us. And when they become off of us, then the new creation is revealed. The person that you were intended to be, the destiny that God has laid out before you becomes manifest. So my encouragement to you is you have to just keep getting up and keep going back to him and say, look, I need help. And he leads you the way that you need to be led.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Shawn, for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I hope that Shawn's story was an encouragement to you. No matter where you are on your journey today, know that God sees you and he loves you. He sees you in the messes that you make, in the messes that we've made, and he sees you in the joys and the potential that you have in your life. And maybe, you're at the spot where Shawn was, and you just really have a desire to turn to Jesus today. Call our prayer lines. The number's at the bottom of your screen. Amazing prayer partners that would love to pray with you, encourage you, and also invite you to accept Jesus into your heart. Trust me, you can't go wrong with that decision today. Stay with us. We'll be right back.